And so after 30 days of water only, he completely reversed his heart disease to the point where, he couldn't walk 10 feet without getting chest pain. He was playing a full game of tennis by the end of 30 days without any chest pain at all. And then going and working out at the YMCA.
Hey guys, welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. I'm hopping on here before Dr. Saunders gets in, so just want to say hi. It looks like we have quite a few of you hopping on. Hello, guys. Hello, Garcias. Let's see, Albert, Brian, Chris, Harold, Lloyd, Maria, Marvin. Mary is on. Hello. Hey, this is amazing that all of you are hopping on here because the Zoom emails, reminder emails still did not go out. And I have been back and forth with Zoom over the past week, and they handed it off to somebody else to look into. So I'm not sure why we're not getting them, but I don't think any of you got them. If you did, let me know. I'm actually going to pull up the chat here, make sure that that's working. Someone want to say hello in the chat. We'll make sure that that's good to go here. Oh, nope, I got to change something. Man, settings just change every time. Now it should work. Yay, awesome. Okay, Dr. Saunders should be hopping on here shortly. I know those reminders. I know, but I'm glad you guys all figured out how to get here. Did you just look at a past email that went through? I'm wondering if that's how most of you found it. Oh, such a bummer. So sorry, guys, but way to be persistent and figure it out, right? Oh, you re-registered. Oh, wow. Made a bookmark. Yay, guys. Okay, that's a great idea. Even letting people know when they register or once they hop on the webinar to create a bookmark so they can always find it every week. Great idea. Great idea, Alan. Okay, good. Because the thing is those links are individual to you. And so I can't just post a link for people to hop on. So one quick question before we get started while I'm waiting for Dr. Saunders, because I'm here by myself running the show. First of all, if you're new, hi, I'm Leslie. This is the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. We're so happy that you guys are here. This is the place where we talk about type 2 diabetes. Dr. Saunders hops on, chats with us, does some teaching, and then we open this up for questions. And so it's just a really, really good time to get more information about how you can reverse your type 2. And we've been doing this, I want to say, it's getting close to like 150 webinars, and we do them every week. If you want to see the past webinars, you can go to bartonwebinar.com. There you will find a link to our YouTube channel where all of our past webinars are. And they're so good, you guys. You can do some searching for different topics. For example, today we are going to be talking about fasting. And we will also take your questions about that and about anything related to type 2. So let me look through this here. All right, perfect. Yep, just find a past email. That'll have the link. That's great. You don't need to re-register. Something's going on with Zoom, and they'll get that taken care of. One question, I did post this in our Barton Webinar Facebook group. If you have not joined that, please do so. That is a private group where we just kind of share some things. And again, it's Barton Webinar. And I'll typically, if something comes up like where the reminders don't go out, then I'll post something there. Just so kind of reminds you like, oh, there is a webinar. So hopefully you get a notification. But I did post a question there today. And I had just said, we have some people on our team who really want to know what your favorite parts of the diabetes solution kit are. And so, what has been the most helpful thing for you in the diabetes solution kit? What was most interesting? What were some of the most valuable pieces or nuggets? Or if you want to give me page numbers, you could do that. You can email that or post it in the comments and just let me know what really helped you in that. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, this is the diabetes solution kit. So basically, a lot of our discussions that we talk about here are based on this. So this is just a real easy. How many pages are we at? Oh, we have some blank pages, but about 120 pages of information on how to reverse your type 2. And Dr. Saunders, who helped to write this program, this is what he does with his patients in his office. And so you can get this for a lot better price than you can if you were to visit him in his office. But you can get this online. You can go to bartonwebinar.com and you'll find information about that. But it is a 3-phase plan on how to reverse your type 2. And basically, it's with food. And we also do have supplements, but Dr. Saunders really wants you to take care of it with food. And the supplements are there to help as well. But it is phase 1 is 20 net carbs per day. And so that might seem like you got to be kidding me, right? But we did include some recipes, and we have had so many people who are even on today who've had great success with it, and they did it. They're having amazing results, and that's just phase 1. So there are 3 phases. You slowly introduce more things, and you see how your body reacts. One of the discussions we had today with someone on our team was, until your body is, let's just say, clean, until you've gone through phase 1, you've gotten rid of all the sugar and the stuff, you don't even necessarily know how certain food affects you until you're at that point, right? And so it's just a really, really good plan to help you see how your body works best. Okay. I better send a message to Dr. Saunders. I'm not sure where he is. One second. Hopefully I don't have to let him in here. Better check. No. Okay. All right. I won't be able to answer any of your type 2 related questions until he gets on. But if you do have other questions, feel free to post those in the chat. Just if you're new here, you can use the Q&A. Actually, that's the best place to post your questions, because then I can kind of navigate the questions a little bit and make sure that we're getting to all of them. When they're in the chat, I miss things sometimes, or I can't get back to them, or you just never know. And there he is. Yay. I was almost going to have to do the teaching myself. It would have been ugly, guys.
And you would have done a great job too.
I was thinking today, so the topic today is fasting. And I really need to do a good fast, which I hate to say that out loud, but I do need to, and I may have to
Why do you hate that?
I don't hate it, because I feel really good when I do it. But what I was going to say is I have gone through my own health struggles, and I have done some fasting with Dr. Saunders' recommendations, and I have seen great things happen to my body. And when you kind of get out of the rhythm of doing that, I feel like everything just gets a little bit sluggish. And so this is going to be a good teaching for me. I'll be listening and taking his advice, just like I always do. But I'm just really excited to talk about this. We get a lot of questions about fasting. And one thing that I really appreciate about Dr. Saunders is when people have different illnesses, he's not one to just say, oh, just take these pills and these vitamins, these supplements, these prescriptions. He wants to get to the root cause of it. And often it seems like really food and fasting are kind of where he goes. Those are kind of the things I think that he likes to use. Now, I could be wrong, but maybe that's just for me and everybody on the webinar. But it's good. It's also the least expensive way, if we're honest. So with that, I think we'll let you kind of take over here, Dr. Saunders. Before we get started talking about everyone's favorite topic, fasting, let's give a little disclaimer.
Okay, so the information that we're going to talk about here is general information for a wide audience. It's for a lot of different people, and hopefully I can apply it to a lot of different people, but it may not apply to you specifically. So it's important that you assess to whether that information applies to you. And you may need help. You may need expert advice to say, hey, is this going to fit my situation? And that's the way to use the information that you get here. Not just to randomly apply and say, well, Dr. Saunders said, don't eat for 30 days. So I quit eating for 30 days. And look what happened to me. I actually had a guy. Okay, so this is a true story. Guy was he came to me. It wasn't really my idea. He said, "Okay, I've been doing some research on fasting, and I know it can reverse heart disease, and I have really bad heart disease, and I want to reverse it." I'm like, "Okay, fine. So I'll supervise it. I'll tell you what to do." So we got him started. He was just drinking water, nothing else, and halfway through, about 14 days into it, he stood up a little too fast and fell down, hit the piano on his forehead, on the edge of the piano. You know, pianos don't move very well, right? So I said, whack. And he had to get stitches across his forehead. And then he had to listen to the emergency room doctors saying how stupid it is to fast. But he kept going for another 2 weeks. And so after 30 days of water only, he cured, completely reversed his heart disease to the point where, you know, he couldn't walk 10 feet without getting chest pain. He was playing a full game of tennis by the end of 30 days without any chest pain at all. And then going and working out at the YMCA. So you know, it works. It's really good, but you got to be careful. And it's not something that you just like randomly do and go on with your life without any changes. So those are the things we want to talk about today. That what fasting is. So let's define what it is, because that's important, because a lot of people have the words out there of fasting and they say, well, this is sort of like a fast. So what is fasting? It's really, really simple. Your stomach is empty. That's all it means. So in the morning, when you wake up and you go, oh, I think I'll have some breakfast. Where did that come from? Break fast. What does breaking the fast mean? It means you're gonna stop fasting, right? So what does breakfast come from? Well, you know, the idea is you had dinner and then you haven't eaten, or you slept all night long and your stomach got emptied out. And guess what you're doing when your stomach's empty? You're fasting. So you have to eat breakfast to break the fast because your stomach's empty. Okay. Why is that important? Well, because you see a lot of things out there of people saying, oh, you can do a water fast or a juice fast or what I see recently, a raw vegetable fast or a chocolate fast or this fast or that fast. You know what? None of that is fasting. In fact, there's one group out there that has a kit that you can buy for like $250, and it is 5 days of food, and they're in little boxes, and it's like a minestrone soup and a mushroom soup and a little drink thing with glycerin. So what is that? Well, it's called a fast mimicking diet. So you have 5 days of fast mimicking. What does that mean? Well, it means you're eating some calories, and you're eating the soups, and you have little almond bars and stuff like that. You're eating. It's not 5 days of fasting. It's 5 days of fast mimicking. That's what the word they use to say, well, you're not really fasting. You're really kind of being like fasting. So where does this go? Well, it goes, if you plumb the depths of the research that's been done on this, it is amazing. Like you repair your body when you're not eating, when your stomach is empty. So what you want is an empty stomach. That's what everybody wants. Why? Well, because we have a certain level of functioning in our bodies, right? So let's say we have this level of functioning. And then every day we get in the catabolic state and we lose a little bit of function. Why? Well, because you're doing stuff. It's like driving a car, right? Every day you drive your car, you're wearing it out just a little bit more, right? It's the same thing with your body. You're just wearing it out a little bit. So then at night, when you're sleeping and fasting and nothing in your stomach, then you make all these anabolic hormones, which are the rebuilding and repairing hormones. And they go to every cell in your body and they start repairing everything. all your joints that you've used too much, all your muscles that you've torn, they're going to repair them even stronger than they were. And all that's going to happen what? At night while you're fasting. And that's really important because that's when that happens. So then you gain back a little bit, you gain back your normal function. And then the next day, same thing. You're going to go out and you're going to slay the dragon and do all your stuff, and you're going to lose some function, and then you're going to gain it back. And then the next day, same thing. And every day you're doing the same thing on your circadian rhythm as you're sleeping at night and repairing everything. And during the day, you're working out. So that maintains your function normally. Well, what happens if you don't repair? What happens if you're not fasting? If you're not going to bed early enough, if you're not making human growth hormone and all the other anabolic hormones, well, what happens is you lose a little bit of function, but you don't repair. And then you lose a little bit of function, and then you don't repair, and then you lose a little bit of function. And then you get, you don't notice it because it's tiny amount each time, just like driving your car. You don't notice it from one day to the next, how much your car's worn out, how much your engine's worn out. You don't know. But 20 years from now, what? Man, my car is really old. And people say that about themselves. They go, I used to be able to do that. I'm getting old, and my joints are creaky and it hurts to get up. And man, I can't sleep as well as I used to. And man, I don't remember things like I used to. All of those things are what this gradual decline in function. Because why? We've never repaired. Well, what happens if you don't repair your car? Well, you lose function on that. Then you don't repair, then you lose function on that. Then pretty soon you're driving a pretty ratty car and you're going to be stuck on the side of the road because it's not going to work. Well, that's what happens with your body too. So that's why you want to have an empty stomach. The empty stomach is the time that you get all those anabolic hormones and you start repairing everything in your body. Repair what? Everything from your hair grows better. And I've had people who did a long-term fast and the color came back to their hair. They actually didn't have gray anymore. Didn't work for me, as you can tell. It repairs your brain. You don't get Alzheimer's disease. Why? Because all those tau proteins that build up, all the toxic metabolites that are left over in your brain that cause the Alzheimer's disease, they get cleaned out while you're fasting. All that gets cleaned out. What about cancer? Well, you can't get cancer if every time you fast, your immune system starts cleaning up all the senescent cells. They're called senescent cells. They're the ones that are asleep or dead, actually. And all of the ones that are the bad cells, the cancer cells, it's called autophagy, where you're eating yourself. But what are you eating? Well, you're eating waste. All of the stuff in your body that's wasted, like all the proteins, like the ones in your brain. Or what about cholesterol deposits in your arteries, like that guy with really bad heart disease, like he was really bad heart disease. And in 30 days, he cleaned out all the cholesterol out of his arteries. And why? Because of autophagy, because you're eating all the waste products they're stuck in your body, all the toxins. You can't detox without fasting. You want the empty stomach because that's when you get all of that good stuff happening. So everything good happens while your stomach is empty. Well, then you say, okay, well, then that's obvious what I'm going to do. I'm just never going to eat again, and that'll be fine. Well, that's not the way things work. You have to put gas in your car sometimes. I actually had a friend, this is a true story. When I was in college, one of my roommates, he lived on a farm and in Utah, and he was going to go to school, and his mother was talking to the next door neighbor and saying, yeah, we got to buy him a car because he's going to have a car in school. We don't have enough money to buy him a car. And the neighbor says, well, I got a car. And he's like, And she's like, well, we're not going to take your car. She goes, honey, just take my car. It was my husband's car, and he bought it just before he died, and they put it in the garage, and it's been there ever since. So my roommate got a brand new DeSoto that was 50 years old, well, 40 years old, and had barely been driven under 1,000 miles. All they had to do is they had to put some tires on it, but it was like it had been covered in a barn for 40 years, just sitting there. You know, how often does that happen? Well, you can keep your car really nice by putting it in a barn and covering it up and leaving it there, but it's not very useful. That's the same with your body. You want to be useful, so you got to go out and do stuff. You got to go out and lift weights and have some stress and think and, you know, use your brain and use your muscles, so that you're functional, so you can do stuff. And you're going to have to put food in so that you get the nutrients and you get the energy, fuel, so that you can function, right? So you're going to break down while you're functioning, but the opportunity that you have is to rebuild. So that's why you fast. And every night we do the 6-10 reset. That means you stop eating by 6 o'clock, you go to bed by 10. Why? Because that's how you get your human growth hormone that initiates that repair every single night. Now, some people are worn away and they're going like, oh my gosh, I let my car go all these years. I didn't change the oil. I didn't do anything to it. The tires are all about ready to pop. And so you have to do a whole complete refurbishing of your old car, right? The DeSoto that was sitting out in the sunshine and got driven all the time and never got any repairs or anything. So now you got to refurbish the whole thing, and you got to put like a whole bunch, going to put thousands of dollars into your car and bring it up and make it like new again. Well, it's not going to be exactly like new, but it'll look a lot better and it'll be a lot better. Well, your body, you can sort of do the same thing, like the guy with the heart disease fasted for 30 days and completely reversed his heart disease and didn't have to have the surgery that his cardiologist said he was going to have if he wanted to live, because he said, you're going to be dead in 30 days if you don't have this surgery. The guy says, I'm not doing the surgery because the surgery is a temporary fix. I don't want a temporary fix. I want to fix it. So the fasting fixed it. And now 3 years later, he still has no chest pain, no heart disease. And if you know William Jefferson Clinton's story, then you know a very similar story where he actually had the surgery and they wanted him to do it again. He's like, are you crazy? I'm not doing that surgery again. So then he went to the Esselstyn Clinic and he started doing this program to reverse the heart disease so that you don't have it anymore. So you can fix, even if you're old, you already have diabetes, you already have heart disease, you already have neuropathy, you can fix this stuff. And one of the important things is to have all of these repair mechanisms working for a long period of time. So that's where people do long-term fasting. And long-term is generally considered more than 3 to 5 days. So 3 to 5 days is sort of a kind of an average fast. A short fast would be the intermittent fasting. So some people will fast just 18 hours. They have a 6-hour window of eating. They eat at 7 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're done. That's all they eat, 2 meals a day. And that's a great way to maintain your function of your body. It's really good. It'll keep your stomach working well, keep your digestion working well. And so intermittent fasting is a great idea as long as you do it in the morning. Because when the research is done and people go, intermittent fasting doesn't work, it's because people put their window of eating in the evening. And if you eat before you go to bed, what happens? you don't get the fasting, and your stomach's not empty when you go to bed. You don't get human growth hormone. You don't repair. You don't do the anabolic phase if you have food in your stomach when you go to bed. So, so it's important. The timing is important too. If you're doing intermittent fasting, make sure it's morning. If you have one meal a day, it's breakfast. If you have 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. If you have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, but early dinner by 6 o'clock. That's sort of our thing. And then the medium-term fasting is like 3 to 5 days. All of the research shows that's how long it takes to switch from like sugar burning metabolism to fat burning metabolism, to reverse the effects of insulin on the brain, to reverse the effects of insulin on the kidneys. So just intermittent fasting may not be enough if you have diabetes. A 3 day is kind of a minimum. 5 day is really good. The optimum fast is 7 days. A 7 day fast, that pretty much resets the whole system. That's where your reset is. So if you did 7 days once a year, I've had people do that who have arthritis, where when they fast, the arthritis goes away, but then they want to eat like regular again. So then they just do it once a year. So there's 7 day fast. Okay, time for my 7 day fast.
Very interesting. One thing that keeps coming up, I have a few questions about this, is people are wondering, what about the supplements that they take and how do they incorporate that into a fast? And
good question. Can we start with that?
Also with that, when people are doing the long-term fasts, the person who does it for a year, what are they eating or supplementing with?
Okay, good question. Okay, so the first question of what supplements do you take? Think of supplements as food. So if you're putting them in your stomach, you're not fasting. So if you're fasting, you're not taking any supplements. Now, having said that, you have to be kind of careful in that if you're treating something, you may need to continue that. So sometimes people who are on antidepressants, there are certain people who have terrible reactions when they suddenly stop their antidepressants, and that may not be a good idea. So there are medications especially that you should be very careful and work with your doctor saying, I'm going to do a fast, and which medications or what is it going to take to get off, or what should I do? And then you have to be careful if you're on like blood pressure medications, because while you're fasting, your blood sugar and blood pressure will be normal. They will just be normal. They'll have to be normal. So what's going to happen, because at first you're going to get hypoglycemic, low blood sugar, and your blood pressure can drop down, and you could fall and hit the piano on your forehead. Or lift up the piano and hit the forehead. I don't know how that works. So you have to be really careful with blood pressure medications and blood sugar medications, because everything's going to come to normal. If you're taking medications, they're going to drop too low, and you're going to be getting dizzy and falling and be foggy headed and get headaches and feel terrible. So with those medications, you got to be careful. Supplements, if it's just a supplement, nutritional supplement, that's food. Don't take it. Easy. Get rid of that. But medications, and sometimes if your supplement is not a supplement but rather treating an illness, like sometimes like depression or anxiety or something, then you have to be really careful with those. Okay. Now the second part of the question is, well, then what do you do long term? Okay. There was a guy in 1968 who weighed about 480 pounds, who went to his doctor and said, you know what? I am so sick of being overweight. I can't function. I can't do anything. I've tried every diet known to man. Nothing works. I'm just going to quit eating. And the doctor said, you'll die. Because it says right here in the medical textbook, if you fast more than 10 days, you die. So he said, you'll die. And the guy said, I'd rather be dead. But so the doctor convinced him to go in the hospital. So he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, didn't eat anything. He says, well, I'm not dead yet. In fact, I feel better. So he left, he went home, and he went back to the doctor periodically. And for a year and 18 days, I think it was a year and 18 days, he ate nothing, 0 calories. He drank water, he drank black tea. He was in Scotland, right? And he took a vitamin pill. So the doctor gave him a vitamin pill. So a multivitamin. And that was it. And so here's a kicker though. Think about this. 5 years later, the Journal of Postgraduate Medicine from the United States went and looked him up and said, okay, how's he doing now that he's been eating for 5 years? You know, did he gain it all back? Nope. He was still 180 pounds. And so why is that? Well, because when you're fasting, you reset your fat thermostat. You didn't know you had that, right? When people eat like 500 calorie diets and they eat the medically supervised diets and they lose weight and they always go, whoop, they bounce back. Why? Because you have a hypothalamus that tells you how much leptin you should have. The leptin is made by fat. So you have to make that much leptin. If you're not, you're going to have to eat more till you get up to that level. You have to be at that level. When you fast, you reset the level. The other thing that resets the level is changing the diet. So if you have a change in the way you eat, either when you eat, how much you eat, or what you eat, then that can reset your thermostat. But if you go back to eating what you had, you just bounce right back, because that's what your hypothalamus tells you your body has to have.
Interesting. This is so good.
Sorry, I get so excited about it.
It's such good information though, and I know everyone here loves it. So this does kind of follow this. You might have kind of answered this already, but Charles is asking specifically, I have several prescribed meds that need to be taken with food, or they will give me an upset stomach and diarrhea. How do you recommend I deal with this while fasting?
Yeah, okay. So generally when people do that, there are certain things that go through pretty quickly. So like with the fasting mimicking diet, they give you those little almond bars. Almonds are a great way to do that. You take some almonds, then you can take your pill, that kind of thing. The other things that, like when people get hypoglycemic, I recommend raw almonds or carrots. Carrots are actually a really good way of not spiking, because a lot of things like if you were to eat, well, watermelon would be a terrible thing that would just spike your sugar if you have nothing in your stomach and you haven't eaten for a while and then you just eat watermelon. But things like carrots and almonds, nuts, and seeds, they'll coat the stomach, and that'll help. So if you have to take a medication with food, then have something like nuts, carrots, almonds, celery, things that are low in calorie, but are going to add the fiber in there so it doesn't irritate your stomach.
Okay. Let's see. You have lots of questions about taking supplements while fasting. I believe this is talking about cortisol. How does cortisol, I'm assuming that's what they're asking. How does cortisol affect diabetes? And is breakfast only a good plan? So two questions.
Yes. Okay. Breakfast is only as a good plan, but that's an important part about the cortisol. So we're talking about circadian rhythm, right? That's what we're talking about, the anabolic phase when you're asleep and the catabolic phase when you're awake. Well, the catabolic hormone that initiates that is called cortisol. And cortisol is also the stress hormone. It's a catabolic hormone. It breaks down your body. Have you ever seen people with super thin skin, like they just brush by a door and it rips up? That is caused by high cortisol levels over a long period of time. And sometimes doctors will give an injection into a skin or something that because of inflammation or because there's something there, something inflammatory there. So they'll inject cortisone, and it causes this thinning of the skin and the breakdown of the fat. And so so cortisone breaks down your body. So then what about the cortisol and diabetes? Cortisol also makes you resistant to insulin. So it prevents your cells from bringing sugar into the insulin. So when you're really stressed, it keeps your blood sugar high so that your brain and your heart and your kidneys can have plenty of energy to get out of that situation, whatever it is. So that's why stress will make you insulin resistant. So you're not putting energy into cells that aren't immediately needed.
The body really is amazing.
Amazing. Just absolutely wonderful. We are wonderfully made, aren't we?
You know, I just feel bad for those early years of my life when I had to study stuff about the body and I didn't really care, because I really care now and it's really exciting. So, oh, so cool. Anyway, all right. Glenn has some questions about supplements. When you take your supplements, do you have to take them every day? So this is not when we're fasting. This is just in general. He believes that you had mentioned that it might be better to not take them every day. And please clarify, what are the best supplements to continue once having accomplished the goal of reversing the diabetes and holding my own?
Okay. You know what? That is a great question. And the problem is we don't have good answers for this. We just have sort of ideas. So there was some research done in taking supplements every day versus taking them irregularly. And the idea of one-a-day vitamins came about because someone wanted to market their vitamins and say, well, here, just take one a day. It's got everything you need in it in the right amounts, this micro amounts. And that was more of a marketing thing and had nothing to do with the research. So the other research that was done, so for example, they did specifically on magnesium, and they gave people magnesium, 1 gram of magnesium, and then drew their blood to see how much they absorbed that actually got into their blood. And what they found was staggering. It was that, they absorbed this much, I don't know exactly the numbers, but they absorbed this much of that 1 gram dose on day 1. And by day 90, within 90 days, they were only getting 30% of what they had started out absorbing. So then they look at what happens if you take it intermittently. Then you don't. You keep absorbing it at that level. And other research on herbs, even, like there was a really good research, there's been a lot now on wormwood, because wormwood is used all over the world for the #1 killer in the world, and that's malaria. And wormwood works really well for malaria. It's an herb, it's not a prescription drug. But they were saying, well, it's not working. And the reason it isn't working because you have to take it long term. But they found if they took breaks, like 5 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off, it worked. It kept working. It didn't stop working. The 7 days on, 7 days off also worked really well. But if they took it continuously, it did not work. So we have some research to indicate that taking a daily supplement is not a good idea. So what do I recommend? Well, I take mine once a week, and I take a pretty high dose of a lot of different things once a week. My vitamin D is 50,000 units. I take that once a week. My zinc, I take 100 milligrams once a week. The others, I use a multivitamin for most of the, like B vitamins, B100. I take 3 or 4 of those. So I think just from the research that I've done, it's my personal opinion, but I think it's probably better to do everything once a week, but I don't know.
And maybe not take all of those once per week while you're fasting. I just feel like that might not be good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, while you're fasting, well, I don't know. The guy
if you think your stomach can handle it, maybe. But
yeah, the guy that fasted for a year, he did it. Took his
wow,
vitamins once a week or every day.
so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Garcias said this is so good. Just to understand, if we go on a 7-day fast, what could we drink other than water? Coffee, tea, obviously no sugar.
Okay, so fasting is empty stomach. If you drink water, then you're not fasting. So is there any research on that? Yeah, there is actually animal research that shows that the animals that are no food, no water get better numbers than the ones that have just no food and continue to drink water ad lib. So you know what? But I can't recommend that you not drink water. If you're fasting, if you're doing a water fast, you're doing a modified fast. You're not actually fasting because you're putting something in your stomach. But water drains out really quickly and makes your stomach empty again, and then you go back. So it's okay, right? Because within less than an hour, all of that water is going to be gone. So water, especially if you're going to go 7 days, yes, definitely drink water. So what else can you have? Well, people ask me, I need my coffee every day. And I say, well, this would be a good time to detox from all the caffeine and stuff. And they go, no, I need it. Okay, fine. It's going to drain out of your stomach about as fast as the water will. The problem with caffeinated drinks is they stimulate the adrenal glands, and then you end up with the cortisol anyway. So you end up with the stress hormones, and then you're not getting all the benefits of fasting. So the more you have an empty stomach, the less you put into your mouth, the better off you'll be. Put it that way. Now, having said that, don't get dehydrated and stand up and get dizzy and fall down and hit the piano on your forehead. It's kind of a bummer.
Okay. Let's see. David has a question about fasting. Oh, you know what? And this is good. This is a great time to talk about this. He says, I understand the not eating part of intermittent fasting, but why do you say that you should be asleep by 10?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a different issue entirely. And we actually addressed this in one of our webinars completely, where we discuss exactly why and all that. So in a circadian rhythm, you have cortisol released in the morning, and then it goes down at night. And the bottom of that is right around 10 p.m. That's when it reaches its lowest point. And it's pretty close to zero. So it goes from like between 10 and 20 to like 0.05. It's like that much different morning to night. And so when it gets down to that lowest point, if your stomach is empty and if you're asleep, then you release, for your pituitary gland makes human growth hormone in a really interesting spike manner. You get like 10 minutes of this huge spike of human growth hormone, and then it drops down. And that initiates your anabolic metabolism. And you have all the other anabolic hormones that are working at that point as well. So if you're not asleep by 10 p.m., it doesn't happen. People who work like shift work, like they work the evening shift, they don't get home till 11, they don't get anabolic. People who work night shift, they don't get anabolic. That sleeping by 10 p.m. Seems to be like that's where that circadian rhythm is, and it's pretty fixed in the research.
Yes, and he had mentioned that we have done webinars on this. I believe the titles of those webinars, one of them is anabolic and catabolic, I believe is what we called it, but otherwise The 610 Reset is the title. So if you go to Barton Webinar, you'll see a link to our past webinars on YouTube, and you can search for 610 and or reset, anything, and that should come up. So really good information. Dr. Saunders does some great teaching on this, and it's awesome. In fact, the first times that he really taught our whole Barton team about this, I think we had visited somebody and they were talking about how they were actually, I can't think it was them, they were buying human growth hormone, I believe, right? And trying to achieve this and talking about how expensive it was. And Dr. Saunders is like, you could just stop eating at 6 and go to bed at 10, right? So it was like, Dr. Saunders, always the budget guy. He always knows the cheap ways to get these things. So,
I do that. People come in and I have a membership. People pay $100 a month to be on the membership in my office. And I tell them, I will save you more money than you'll pay me. And I do. True. I do. Like, no co-pays for their drugs. Fasting, they save on food, they save on everything.
I know. I'm always like, just give me a pill so that this will all go away. And he always says, no, we're not doing that. You're going to do the hard stuff that's actually cheap. So it's so good. He's so wise. All right. I don't actually say, just give me the pill, but sometimes I want him to tell me that. Let's see. Great question from our friend Brian. How does fasting affect those who are not overweight and don't want to lose weight?
Okay. That's a great question. Fasting is still helpful. So it's not about weight loss. The guy that was 480 pounds and lost 300 pounds. Okay. That was his intent. But we're talking about repairing your body every day. So it has nothing to do with weight loss, really. Yes, you're going to lose weight if you're not eating. So I have a story about that too. There was a guy in the late 1800s who his wife died. He was depressed. He didn't have any children. He lost his business. He was a doctor, and he read in his textbook, he was so depressed, he read in his textbook, it says, if you fast for 10 days, you'll die. And he didn't want to leave a big mess by committing suicide. So he just said, okay, I'm just going to quit eating. So he quit eating. And so 10 days went by, he said, well, I'm not dead yet. And then 20 days went by, and he says, well, I'm still here. Apparently had a little bit of girth on him. And then he got up to 40 days and he's like, you know what? I feel better. I'm not depressed anymore. I feel great. And I have plenty of energy and everything. And so he fasted one more day just to beat Jesus. And so then he went out and started, he's going to say, I'll go back to work. I'll do something. And it wasn't depressing, where he's talking to one of his colleagues, another doctor, and said, oh yeah, I quit eating. I fasted for 40 days. I just drank water, 40 days and 41 days. And the doctor said, no way. And he goes, yes, I did. It said, no way. No, I would never believe that. You would be, it says right here in the medical textbook, you will fast, if you fast 10 days, you die. He goes, no, well, I read that too. And I wanted to die, but I didn't. I'm still here after 41 days of fasting. And the doctor wouldn't believe him. So they put him in New York in a theater and guarded all the doors so nobody could get in with any food. And they kept him there, making sure he ate nothing for 40 days. And he's like, so he did it again, another 40-day fast. And the newspapers got a wind of it. And so they started writing newspaper articles, sending it out all over the place. And because he'd lost his wife, he got like marriage proposals, and people were trying to bring food in and sneak food in, and mail in food in boxes and all that stuff. Anyway, so he did it for another 4 days. Well, by that time, 2 40-day fasts, he's pretty skinny, right? He lost more weight than he wanted to. So in 2 weeks, he gained it all back. After 40 days of fasting, he just ate a lot. So you don't have to worry about it. And it's not a big deal if you gain it back when you start eating and exercising. And so fasting periodically is a good idea. Even if you don't want to lose weight, it's okay to not eat, repair your body, fix everything, and then eat. But choose good food.
Roy is asking, how long can you go with no water?
Well, I think the record on that, I read I was looking that up. And the record on that is like 19 days in the desert of somebody that was survived zero water because there was none around for 19 days. So it's possible. Most say you shouldn't go for 3 days without drinking to get dehydrated. So when I fast for 3 days, I'll do no food, no water for 3 days. If I do more than 3 days, I'll do the first 3 days without food and water, and then I'll drink. So if I do a 7-day fast, I drink water. If I do more than 7 days, I usually do broth because the broth has electrolytes in it. It has like the sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. I make it myself with bones, and that way I can continue to work and function and do stuff. So if I do like 14 days, I'll do broth.
Okay. Vilo and Barbie said, we can say that the 610 reset is amazing. Thank you guys. And let's see, Vilo says, Barbie and I work out about every other day with HIIT programs. Should we stop or limit that during the fast?
No, that's a great question. Keep doing your activities, keep doing your exercise. It's really important because there's one thing that happens in autophagy. Autophagy is you're eating yourself, right? If you're laying around on the couch, then your brain, but your hormones are essentially saying, oh, we don't need these muscles anymore because they're not being used. So use them and you won't eat up your muscles. Yes. Yeah, you actually do use protein when you fast. Most of that is waste protein, but you could use muscles. So it's a good idea to continue to exercise.
Oh, did we lose him?
What?
Oh, there he is. It just kept cutting out. It could be on my end, but I'm not sure. Okay, we're almost out of time. I'm going to go through a couple of these as fast as we can. At the beginning of the webinar, I asked you guys what your favorite parts of the diabetes solution kit were. And Glenn said we found the whole manual helpful, but when I read that I could only have 20 carbs per day, I thought that it was going to be very difficult. But the recipes were so good to keep me on the 20 carbs per day. When we cooked them and ate them, we said we could even feed this to guests for dinner. Yes, we had to buy and spend a bit more, but it was worth it. So I did not feel like I was suffering on a diet. Through hard work and discipline, I found it helped me to lose 50 pounds in 6 months.
Wow.
And all the rest of the benefits going off metformin, lower A1C, lower blood pressures, a whole new wardrobe, etc. Ooh, that's fun. Okay, I finished the program a year ago, last March, and still holding my own. These weekly webinars are very helpful, and to try to watch as many as possible. Thanks for doing this and this great program. I've shared it with many. Glenn, you are so awesome. I love to hear these stories. We love to hear these. I can't wait to share this with our team because this is what keeps us doing what we do. And so good.
Yeah, 50 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder if he liked my ceviche recipe.
Yeah, Dr. Saunders has a ceviche recipe in there. I'm a huge ceviche fan. So that I was so excited when he shared that and we put that in there. I was like, yes, this is a great one. Okay, let's see. So this is a message from Roy. When I fast for 3 to 7 days, the first meal afterward, this is a really good question for numerous reasons. What should you eat coming out of a fast? I'm just going to throw that in there. The first meal afterwards, I always get diarrhea for about 30 minutes later, liquid with small chunks. Is this normal? Sorry for being so graphic. Also, is bone broth once a day for breakfast allowed for a longer fast, like 1 to 2 weeks?
So the answer to question number 2 is absolutely yes. That's what I do. Yeah. And then the other with the diarrhea stools, that can be normal. That your colon is essentially cleaning out all of the stuff that was kind of stuck there, because there was nothing there to clean it out before. So that's okay. So then the big picture of what Leslie was talking about, well, how do I break the fast? What should I eat? Okay, fiber, just whatever has fiber, fruit, vegetables, beans, peas, lentils, whole grains. The more fiber you get at first, the better you'll grow the good bacteria. And so there's more benefits to fasting than the autophagy that I mentioned. Also repairing the gut and repairing the colon bacteria balance. And to bring balance back to the force, the best way is to have a lot of fiber in your diet. So just start with fiber. The first day, I just eat nothing but fiber, fruits and vegetables, and then or beans, peas, lentils. And then after that, I start adding whatever other stuff in.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, someone actually posted about your bone broth recipe. I feel like we posted that somewhere or at some point. Did we not? Do you remember this?
I think so. I don't know.
No, let me think about that. I have to think about that. I feel like we have it somewhere.
It's super simple. I don't have a recipe, but I did write it down once.
I know. Honestly, you can Google this and probably find a million.
Oh, there's a million of them. But I got to tell you this. Okay, so I've done a lot of this bone broth stuff, and I have found that celery makes the difference. In fact, it was really weird. One of my nutritionists that worked in my office said she ran out of celery. She didn't have any celery. She was making broth. But she had celery seed in her cupboard, and even putting celery seed in there made the difference for having a good, tasty, hearty broth. It just tastes kind of thin and weird without the celery. I don't know why.
Very interesting. Okay, that's good. Let's see. This is a great question from David. At one point, I worked on the railroad with very irregular shifts, some all night. Is there any diet that can help with that?
Yeah. Well, having an empty stomach is actually helpful if you can have an empty stomach during that time, even while you're working. So as far as diet goes, you want to get back to if you're changing shifts, you want to get back to the normal circadian rhythm of having your cortisol in the morning and then having the cortisol get low at night. Because what happens when you're doing shift work is when you go on to the night shift, you have your cortisol in the morning, and then you have a second wind, which means you release more cortisol at night, and then so you have this sort of flatline high cortisol level, and you don't have the normal circadian rhythm, normal ups and downs. So you want to get back to that as much as you can, and the best way is with diet. So eating your breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's why we say eat breakfast. If you're going to skip any meal, skip dinner. If you're going to skip 2 meals, skip lunch and dinner. Eat your breakfast, because that's what initiates that circadian rhythm. And so that's the best way, is just to get back on track each time by having your 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock meal a.m.
And remember, just because it's breakfast doesn't mean you have to eat breakfast foods. So you can eat whatever you want that fits into your goals.
Yeah, I have salads for breakfast. I have beans for breakfast.
Eat whatever you like for breakfast. You don't. Yeah. I'm not a huge breakfast food fan. So, okay, last question or comment maybe. Richard says, I went to the doc and I found out that my A1C had gone from 5.9 to 6.5. I went on phase 1 for 5 weeks, took synochroma, and had my blood work done again. My A1C went back to 5.9 and lost 12 pounds.
Woohoo!
Yay! That's great, Richard.
Good work.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. The name of the human growth hormone is human growth hormone.
HGH. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Growth hormone, GH. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. Oh, we have one more question. Let's quick to this. I've had
Okay.
trouble with my blood pressure. However, I'm taking 10 milligrams of olmesartan daily, and now my blood pressure can bounce from 91/61 to 120/75. I feel like I'm going to pass out when it gets really low. I feel best at 120/75 or 125/75. I contacted my docs to see if I can go off the olmesartan. What do you say?
Okay, olmesartan is okay. Here's what I would say. So for general information, right? I'm not your doctor, but for general information, that blood pressure medication blocks something called the renin-angiotensin system from constricting blood vessels. And so when you're having symptomatic hypotension, low blood pressure, in other words, when I stand up, I get dizzy, that's dangerous. That's not a healthy thing at all. And your risk of heart attack goes up. So there is zero benefit to having blood pressure that low. And in fact, it's dangerous. So so if any of you out there are getting low blood pressure, or when I stand up, I get dizzy, there's a reason for that. And if it's your blood pressure being low, then you better talk to your doctor about that medication is not a healthy thing for you.
Okay. All right. That's it for today, Dr. Saunders.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We'll see you
You're
next
welcome.
week.
Good to see everybody. Bye.
Bye. And guys, that's it for us. And if you are new here and you are not familiar with some of the things that we're talking about, and maybe you missed the beginning of the webinar, just a reminder, we are talking about the diabetes solution kit mostly. We're talking about type 2, how to reverse it, and the diabetes solution kit is what we typically are referencing. And so you can find more information about this at bartonwebinar.com. You will find a list of our supplements. You will find a link to our YouTube channel where you can find our 140 plus webinars that we have done. We do this every single week, no cost. The diabetes solution kit is basically what we talk about. We talk about type 2, and then we do some teaching about particular topics. And then we also do question and answer at the end. And so lots of good information has been shared on those webinars. Go check them out. The diabetes solution kit has phases 1, 2, and 3. That's what we reference. That is what so many people have had such great success with. And we also share their stories on our YouTube channel as well. And if you have a story that you would like to share about how you have just made some big changes in your life, or small changes that have resulted in a big change for you, maybe it's how you feel, maybe it's how you look, maybe it's your blood sugar numbers, maybe it's, whatever, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to send me a message, Leslie@bartonpublishing.com. I would love to chat with you and hear a little bit more about your journey and where you're at today. So again, we will be back here next week. You can register for this webinar at bartonwebinar.com. The reminder emails did not go out, but hopefully they will. Hopefully they will next week. If not, bookmark the site that you are on right now so that you can hop on easily. And yeah, we're excited to see you guys next week. Thanks for hopping on. Tell a friend about this, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.